So every year after the Super Bowl, I hear people say the halftime show wasn't that great. And my favorite one is the commercials just weren't funny this year. Those are my favorites. Now, similar situations this time around with Kendrick Lamar's halftime show. And I do want to break down the message that I think that he was trying to display to people. A number of people said they didn't understand or they didn't get it. I think the audio was also an issue because I noticed when the halftime show started, I had to increase the volume. Whereas when the game was playing, I didn't have to do that. So I don't know if the audio was a little bit low for you guys, or maybe it was just my TV. Sabby don't know. But one of the things that happened, I want to start off with this one first, was the protester. There was a protester at the halftime show. I believe he was part of Kendrick Lamar's performance, but I guess he decided as well to take this opportunity to send a message on the larger stage at that point in time. Check this out. So does everybody see him? Here's the protester here with the flag, and the flag says, Sudan and Palestine. Yeah, he's one of the dancers. And so he was getting the message out there. And again, a lot of people watching. So a great way to get the message across. And of course, they tackled him and treated him like, you know what I'm saying? Of course, they had to take it there. Well, that individual finally did respond. And I'm not sure if everyone saw this. He was on Al Jazeera, and I want you to hear some of the things that he had to say. Listen to this.
I felt I didn't have a choice because I was elected to be a part of the halftime show. And when I saw what my position was, it was a great stage, a large stage. And we know as a practicing Muslim, our Prophet Muhammad teaches us, if you see a wrongdoing, or you're aware of a wrongdoing, you must stop it with your hands. And if you can't stop it with your hands, stop it with your tongue. Speak out against it. And if you can't stop it with your tongue, try to stop it with your heart, meaning pray about it. And we know that's the weakest of faith. So I had an opportunity on a grand scale to bring awareness or speak out against a wrong of our Muslim brothers and sisters, because we know if one part of the body is hurting, all of the body is hurting. This ummah is one body. So I didn't want to face my creator and not with a sign of weak faith when I knew I had an opportunity to show I didn't have weak faith.
So let me ask you, do you have any cultural or family links to either Palestine or Sudan, or was this purely a gesture of humanity and support for those affected by these wars?
Humanitarian. I'm a humanitarian and I'm a Muslim. So we're spiritually connected in Islam, and we're human, and we're connected with empathy for humanity, because we're all human beings, God's creation, and they're oppressed. And we know God answers the prayers of the oppressed. They are suffering. They're treated with injustice, and it's on a wide scale, and nobody is really giving it the light that it should get, at least working toward a change. And I wanted to show the solidarity to those afflicted by this and their families and loved ones, that they're being remembered here in America. And they're being remembered here in America, not just by me, but by others. And it'll strengthen all of our faith. It was not about a countryman. It was more about spiritual.
Okay, let me jump in.
More about spiritual. And one thing I do want to add, there is an update about his particular situation. Apparently, the NFL has decided to ban him for life. Okay. I've heard these ban for life, stories before, and people still, whatever, dude. Anywho, there's that. He was not charged, which is also good, but I feel like he did what he felt he needed to do for Muslim people. And why not on the world's biggest state? Like, so many people are watching. We'll get to those numbers later on. So many people watching. He's like, I need to get this message out there, to get this message across, right?
I'm going to ask you, do you think the protest, or your protest, is likely to damage your career? Are you worried you may find it difficult to get work again, given what happened?
I trust in God, brother. I wanted to pass that. I fear God more than I fear man. I fear loss of wealth. I fear loss of anything else. I fear losing the pleasure of Allah.
And
it was clear to me with the signs of the show that Kendrick had the American flag and human bodies. He had his PG Lang flags. And it was also many signs for me to show those flags to show how we're all connected.
Yes, because I think you mentioned in a previous interview that Kendrick Lamar was a source of influence for your protest at halftime. So what was it about Lamar that you drew inspiration from?
It wasn't a source of inspiration. I believe I was inspired by a creator, but he was confirmation. Seeing his show, when him talking about the revolution being televised, him having scenes where the American flag is made out of in a human formation, him having his own company's flags flying around. I saw those all as signs for me to incorporate the flag. Him having Samuel L. Jackson playing Uncle Sam, the whole theme being conscious, revolutionary, to make one's consciousness rise and show unification of people. And I thought that I could contribute to taking it to the next level with this activism and protest and enlightenment to make other people aware of what's going on in other parts of the world. A lot of people didn't know what was going on in Gaza. A lot of people didn't know what was going on in Sudan, and they feel like they're not being represented properly. So I had the opportunity to represent them on a global scale, and I had to take that opportunity.
Yeah,
well, I would say a lot of people now, at least by now, know what's happening in Gaza. Sudan is a different story. I have brought on guests on the show to talk about the humanitarian crisis in Sudan as well. Also, I brought on guests to talk about the Congo, and I find more people are unaware about the crisis that are happening in Sudan and Congo than Gaza. But kudos to him.
Yes, even to get the prayers of the people.
Okay,
it was worth it just to get the prayers of the Palestinian and the Sudanese.
Yeah, in response to your protest, the NFL says you'll now be banned for life from all NFL stadiums, from all events. What's your response to the ban, and would you still have done it if you'd known the risks?
The risk of a ban? I was afraid I was going to get sniped by a Secret Service's bullet. I can watch a football program on the television if I choose to, sir. And I don't like large crowds anyway.
Okay, all right. Zulkarnain Nantumba, really.
So, a great response there, right? Like, of course, I don't think he's worried about being banned from the NFL. They did chase him down. And that brings me over to Kendrick's performance overall. There were a number of people that said that they were not impressed with the halftime show. Please answer that poll when you get a chance as well. And I just want to break things down. One thing you have to remember that Kendrick Lamar is an artist. He's not just a rapper. And he tends to have messages throughout his music, right? So if you were expecting to sit down and be entertained like we were with Usher's Super Bowl, or whether it's been, like Justin Timberlake, etc., you weren't going to get that with Kendrick. He was going to send a message, which he did warn you about in the very beginning. We'll get to that in just a second. Now, one of the things I think is hilarious is they are already making memes with Kendrick. This moment here when he looked at the camera when he said, "Say Drake," that part. So now people are making memes with it, and they say Target, and you can see Target Corporation stock plummeting here. So people are already starting to make their moves with it there. But I want to start with, we're going to walk through this a little bit here, and I want to get to with the very beginning. So this first part here, something people may not have noticed. This was something I noticed the first time I watched it. And some things I noticed the second time, but I noticed this right off the bat. The formation here. So if you look at the stage in the beginning, you'll see a square, a triangle, come down here, an X, and a circle. PlayStation. This is the PlayStation controller. So those of you who are gamers, your PlayStation, you probably recognize this too, but you'll see over here, of course, the square, the triangle, the circle, and the X. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So off the bat, he's letting you know this is a game. What kind of game is he talking about? Right. And he confirms that it was a game because at the end of the performance, he shows game over here in the audience, right? So that part was pretty cool. I thought I want to get into we're going to go through her breakdown a little bit, and I'm going to add more to this because there's some things that she leaves out. So again, it is a game. What game is Kendrick referring to? Listen to this. She actually did a pretty good job, but I'm going to add in some more.
The thing with Kendrick Lamar is the more that you listen, the more that you'll hear. And the more that you watch, the more that you'll see. So I just rewatched the Super Bowl halftime show again, and there's so much shit in this. Let's talk about it. First, I want to point out that his entire Super Bowl stage is a PlayStation controller. And who owns PlayStation? Sony? Where's Drake signed to? Sony. So that's the very first button that he's pushing here. Samuel L. Jackson comes out as Uncle Sam, and he starts the game. He says this is America's greatest game, but America's greatest game is actually on halftime. So that's not what he's talking about.
So there's a part she misses here with Samuel L. Jackson talking about this is America's greatest game, right? So Samuel L. Jackson is dressed as Uncle Sam. And Samuel L. Jackson, let me pull this up here. Samuel L. Jackson, dressed as Uncle Sam, says this is the greatest game. What is the greatest game, right? So Samuel L. Jackson represents America. And he's talking about the American game. The game that Kendrick is about to take you through is the American game for Black Americans. So you are going to see the game that has been played with Black Americans in this country. This is what I took from this performance. And I thought it's significant that they have Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam. Let's go on a little bit more here. I just want to make sure it's okay. Sorry, the volume's a little bit lower there, but she's got words.
Greatest game, but America's greatest game is actually on halftime. So that's not what he's talking about. Then opens with a clip of his song GNX standing on top of his GNX. This man said, "You would not get the picture if I had to sit you for hours in front of the loop." Meaning some of you are just not going to get this.
Right. So that's the other part that's important. He tried to tell you. Kendrick tried to warn you that some of you were not going to understand what he was trying to convey for this performance. He said that in the very beginning, right? He said, some of you not going to get this.
Lullaby started with nothing but government cheese, but now I can seize the government too. And then says the revolution's about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy. And
that part is very important. The revolution is about to be televised. And you know, we always say the opposite. We say that the revolution will not be televised. So Kendrick Lamar is letting you know, I'm about to use this opportunity that was given to me at the Super Bowl halftime show to send a message that you probably some of you may not get, but we're going to send it anyway. So he says, you know, you picked the wrong guy. And we have to think about who Kendrick is. Kendrick Lamar is from Compton, right? So Kendrick Lamar is not like, this is not Will Smith. Okay. He has a different life experience, but he also has an experience as a Black person in the United States. Let's go back a little bit.
Now I can seize the government too. And then says the revolution's about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy. And behind him, the crowd lights lit up, warning, wrong way. The background dancers are super important to this too because they're jumping out the GNX, all the different set colors. And then Kendrick goes into Squabble Up. And all of the sets kind of go into their own colors with their own people and they get ready and they look like they're about to fight. As he plays Squabble Up, they all stay in their own little sets and they all squabble up together. They then all march into these lines on the stage and it pops back to Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam says, this isn't what America wants. It's too loud, it's too reckless, and it's too ghetto.
And it's too ghetto. So once again, think about what Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam is saying. No, don't behave that way. Don't go that way. Don't act that way. That's too loud. That's too ghetto. That's too this. This is not what we want to see. This, in my opinion, represented the control or the type of control that the powers that be in this country try to have over the Black population. Remember, everybody on the stage is Black. So this is Kendrick Lamar trying to send a message about Black culture in the United States and how we're constantly being pushed into these areas of don't do this, don't do it that way, don't do it that way. And eventually you'll see he begins to march to his own beat.
If Kendrick even knows how to play the game. The dancers then follow Kendrick up onto stage, surround him in the shape of the American flag. Kendrick is the only star on the stage, and he follows the rules, and he plays humble.
Pause. This piece right here, I hope everybody caught this part, that this was the American flag. And she's right. He's the only one standing. He's the only star that's standing. And you can see there the flag will start to split at some point as well. Right. So after Uncle Sam tells him, no, don't do it like that. Not that way. Then he comes in with humble. Sit down. Be humble. You know that song? Okay. Watch the rest.
Sit down. Be humble. But at the end of it, he says, hold up. And then he goes into DNA. And notice that all the sets behind him are now stepping together. I got loyalty. I got royalty inside my DNA.
Okay, so this again is Kendrick Lamar talking about, again, Black culture here in the United States. And he's saying, I know the song DNA, but he's also trying to tell you that he has loyalty for his people. What I think some people miss, and I don't think she catches it in this video either, what some people miss, this part right here where they're all kind of, marching together down this longer aisle, whatever you want to call it, that to me resembled a prison yard. And to me, it seemed like the message that he was trying to convey there, again, it's Uncle Sam telling him, no, too loud, too ghetto, sit down, da. When you see the image from above, it almost looked like they were all in a prison yard marching together. So again, where does Uncle Sam want you to be? Only in certain spaces, only at certain times. Where are you expected to be? Where are they trying to send you to? Keep that in mind.
It is reminding himself who he is. He ends this little bit with wish I was hold up instead of wish I was dead. Then this man plays Euphoria and all the sets are still together in their own colors, but they're all marching in line and they're all marching towards the same thing, kind of like they're marching into battle. He then says it's KDOT, the fireworks go off, and he transitions into a brand new song that he debuted on the Super Bowl. I could be wrong about that, correct me if I am, but I'm pretty sure it was just debuted at the Super Bowl for the first time, and it's called Man at the Garden.
This part right here where you see them sitting around the street light, there's actually a guy on top of the street light as well. And that goes back to, again, we're talking about Black culture, people sitting on the corner. Like you can see this, like when I was younger in my grandma's neighborhood in Baltimore as well. Like sometimes people would hang out on the corner, whether it was singing or whatever, just doing whatever. Sometimes people would play jacks or play craps on the corner or whatever, but that was kind of like a space for people to kind of gather and collaborate. Again, this is not what Uncle Sam wants him to do. Uncle Sam wants Kendrick Lamar and everybody on this stage to get in line and do what he says to do and behave the way that he wants them to behave. So this is not as cool. Watch this, or at least according to Uncle Sam. But again, that is also a tribute there to Black communities and Black culture.
Notice how the background dancers are all posted up like they're on the corner rapping like back in the days in the streets. He's literally taking it back to what he knows. And then he transitions into peekaboo. But Uncle Sam pops back in and says that, oh, I see you brought your homeboys, the old culture cheat code. And then he deducts one life away from Kendrick.
This goes back to the game again. And I don't know if everybody caught that. Deducting one life away. Of course, this happens in video games. Oh, you brought your buddies with you. Again, it goes back to that. It reminds me of the saying that, oh, if you have one or two Black people, that's fine. But any more than two is a gang, or any more than two is a problem. You see what Uncle Sam is trying to say to Kendrick? There's too many of you. Right. And that was just a way to divide the Black community. They really didn't want Black people to come together and have that type of community and depend on one another. This is why you see that they burned down a lot of all of the Black Wall Streets, because they really didn't want us to have anything. Let's continue here.
Almost like if you get all your people together, you could lose a life. This is where the subliminal messaging gets so deep. And he is the king of Easter eggs. I shit you not. Because
pause here. Here's another one. Again, looking above. This is the X from the PlayStation. And if you look at it from a different angle, you could say maybe it's a cross. But if you notice, people are not in every corner of the X. There's people here, people here, people here. And then this spot over here is open.
Now he's showing you exactly what to do on each move. His now
Yep.
on the X button. So this is the first button he decided to push. And if you pay attention, he'll show you exactly what you should be doing when you're making these moves yourself, because he's calling out to everybody in this performance. But the first move he wants to make is on Drake, and he comes through, and as he's playing peekaboo, he does the Hotline Bling dance. This is also where he teased Not Like Us by saying he wanted to make a move, but he didn't play it, as if he's choosing the right moves and when to make them. And right now is not the right time. He then says he's going to calm it down, and he goes over to the triangle button, and SZA and him perform their song Luther. Those lyrics say, better days coming for sure, and if it was up to me, I wouldn't give these nobodies no sympathy. And then we move over to the circle button. While they're all circling the circle with each other, the rest of the sets are marching towards the circle button.
Pause here for a second. Another thing that I want to mention about the performance with SZA, remember, Uncle Sam says he likes that. He's like, oh, this is great because they slow it down with all the lights. So Uncle Sam approves of that. Uncle Sam is trying to prevent him from going in that direction of doing, of course, Not Like Us, the Drake song. So, and Kendrick is kind of like at one point falling in line and then kind of rebelling against it and then falling in line. And then eventually, if you saw the rest of it, you know what happens there.
This is where Kendrick and SZA perform their song, All the Stars. All the stars that are missing from that flag when Kendrick was the only one up there. We're all the stars. Everyone that is watching this performance is all the stars. He's calling to you. That's when Uncle Sam pops back in and says, that's what America wants to see. It's nice and it's calm, and tells him not to mess this. And before he can say up, Kendrick starts playing the Not Like Us beat. He did his little bit with the girls and they asked if he was really going to do it. And he said, 40 acres and a mule.
Pause. That part right there. And I hope everybody noticed that watched it. Kendrick Lamar was making the call to reparations. He said 40 acres and a mule. And that's what reparation is. That's what we were promised from General Sherman, which obviously did not happen. So Kendrick Lamar, the message that he was sending was clearly towards the Black community. And I would say probably more so towards, you know, those who are ADOS. That's the message he was saying. I'm sorry. All these halftime shows that I've seen and other concerts I've been to, I don't see other artists doing this. I didn't see Usher, you know, make no call for 40 acres and a mule, whatever. I haven't seen this kind of things. One person I will say in particular who was very supportive of this type of energy was Martin Lawrence. When Martin Lawrence had the show Martin, I don't know if everybody notices, Martin used to, pretty much every episode, Martin used to always promote Black designers. Did you notice that? If you look at like his shirts, sometimes his shirts were like the Negro Leagues, or it was like a Black designer. Martin also mentioned 40 acres and a mule. Like, he was someone who was, you know, things were different in the 90s. It was a little bit different back then. But this is what Kendrick was doing. This is the message that he was sending. Now I want to prove a point. When J-Lo and Shakira performed at the Super Bowl, remember, they received a lot of backlash from people. Some people were mad because they felt they were shaking their booty too much. Okay, whatever. Some of these same people get caught up in strip clubs, okay? Some of the same people that said, I don't like seeing them shaking their booties on the Super Bowl and da-da-da. Some of y'all same people be in strip clubs, all right? So there's that. And then two, the other part of it was some people said, oh, it's just, well, it's too Latin. It's too, I don't want to see all that. Like, just keep it American, as if J-Lo wasn't born here in the United. It just all types of things. Now we fast forward to Kendrick Lamar, and I noticed some of those same criticisms. Oh my God, it's too, it's so many words. There's no white people on the stage. It's too this, it's too that, it's too this. In other words, people felt it was too Black. And Kendrick knew you would respond that way. And Kendrick still did what he did. So this part here, the 40 acres and a mule, yes, he was making a call.
Said 40 acres and a mule, this is bigger than the music. 40 acres and a mule is what they promised slaves after the Civil War. And then they tried to rig the game, but they can't fake influence, and smiled into the camera. And knowing Kendrick, he could be very influential. He then dragged Drake up and down New Orleans Super Bowl field, smiling straight into the camera when he said, "Say Drake." The crowd screamed A minor while he has a lowercase a on his chain, and the entire dancer spelled out minor. Then he brought out Serena Williams, and she was crip walking on Drake's grave.
Pause. There's one part about Serena Williams that people aren't mentioning. Yes, a lot of people didn't realize that was her, but Serena Williams she's not just there because she's from Compton. I mean, she is from Compton, and it's not just because she used to date Drake, right? Like, those are two things. That's part of it. But there's a bigger piece to this. People have to remember that Venus and Serena Williams, when they first started playing tennis, you have to remember the classism they experienced because they were from Compton and their parents didn't have much money. Remember, these tennis tournaments aren't cheap. So they were playing against people who were at least at minimum middle class. And I would say that they were not, based on what I read about them. So they experienced classism because of that, and they experienced racism because of that, the industry that they were trying to be a part of. And they turned out to be phenomenal tennis players. I would say Serena Williams is the best female tennis player in the world. So again, if we go back to the message that Kendrick Lamar was trying to send, Black culture finding its way in America, when Uncle Sam is constantly telling it to suppress it. And that's what Samuel L. Jackson was doing. He was trying to tell Kendrick Lamar to suppress that. Don't be so loud. Don't be so ghetto. And so having Serena Williams there to crip walk and dance, it's not just a slap in the face to Drake. It's also a slap in the face to all the people who were classist and racist towards her and her sister when they started playing tennis. Some people forget. I don't.
She's from Compton. She's Drake's ex. And her sister was also unalived in a drive-by shooting involving the Crips. Kendrick is literally saying it doesn't matter what's ever happened before. We got to come together right now. And he's using Serena Williams in multiple different ways to show that. He then brought out Mustard and played TVs off and turned off the TV on Drake's ass. The light in the crowd behind him said game over. And if you were to ask me, I'd say this is most likely a multiplayer game. Could sit you for hours in front of that loop and some of y'all still won't get this.
See? Something else I wanted you to notice too are the number of squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and her head's there, 8, 9. That's also I think what you would have in, tic-tac-toe is also the board for that as well. And all of the squares are outlined as white squares. So Kendrick Lamar was trying to send a message. He was not there to just like sing and dance and entertain people. Something else I wanted to show here, which they bring out as well. You can see a little bit more close-ups here. Again, I hope everyone got the American flag part. So this gentleman points out some of the symbolism. This part right here, see, there's Samuel L. Jackson saying that's what America wants, nice and calm. That's when he was singing with SZA. And I think, again, part of the problem was the volume because it was kind of hard to hear him at some points. I had to turn up the volume during the halftime performance. This part here, again, see how the American flag becomes divided. And he's standing up as the one star there. So the imagery was just so crucial, I think. Again, there's Serena again. See what I said? I told you I think this was a prison yard. That's what that kind of looked like to me, where Uncle Sam really wants all of us to be. So it's more to it than what people realize. Here's something from Cori Bush she pointed out here. She said from 1619 to 1865, the U.S. benefited from over 222 million hours of unpaid, dehumanizing forced labor by enslaved Black people per scholars. This labor primarily produces, obviously, the production of tobacco, rice, sugar, cotton would be valued at over 97 trillion today, built off the backs. And as I said before, if you're a pro-worker, you should be heavily, against what happened here because it was unpaid labor, right? And we did not get the 40 acres and a mule. So Kendrick is strong with this one. And the other part that I want to show here, because I think this really kind of sums it up when we talk about the 40 acres and a mule, a lot of times people, when I bring this up, they haven't heard this. So listen to what Dr. King said.
Money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Now, a lot of people want to talk about MLK, but they don't want to mention that part about MLK. Everybody wants to go back to I Have a Dream because it sounds more palatable. But the reality is you need to mention other things that MLK said as well. Now, this woman here, she had a good point. She said, Kendrick Lamar may not be your style of music, and that's okay. But the dude came out sporting the American flag. Everyone was fully clothed, and there was no obvious signs of satanic worship. I understand our bar isn't set high these days, but conservatives need to pick their battles. This was a W, guys. Calm down. So this is another one, right? Someone out there obviously being very patriotic is what I gathered from it. And as many times as we've heard people complain that the women were half naked, the Super Bowl, you didn't see that this time. Like I told you guys, every year people say the halftime show wasn't good and the commercials weren't funny this year. But check this out. Apparently, it did something. Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show is officially the most watched performance ever. 133.5 million viewers. It surpasses Michael Jackson's halftime show. So as much as people complained about it, ladies and gentlemen, it just beat Michael Jackson. Now, people ask me, was it my favorite of all time? Well, no, my favorite of all time is still Prince. It's kind of hard to beat singing Purple Rain in the rain. Like it is. But I still thought it was a great performance. And I appreciate the message that he was delivering. But it's hard to be Prince for me. It is hard. I've been hanging on to Prince for years. I've been hanging on to him for years. So again, the real story, folks, was the message that Kendrick Lamar was trying to get across. He wasn't there to just try to entertain people. He was trying to deliver a message. So just keep that in mind. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.